Okay, so you guys sent us some really wild stuff this time.
Really fascinating.
Yeah, it's called Atmospheric Energy Technology, or AET.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like AET was a pretty big deal way back when.
It does indeed.
Powering everything.
Yeah.
Like from homes
Mm-hmm.
to,
This is the crazy part.
yeah, to maybe even helping people communicate with the dead.
Wild stuff.
I know.
Buckle up.
Yeah, buckle up where cucumbers on rooftops
Mm-hmm.
maybe weren't just for decoration.
Right.
And gold coins were way more than just currency.
It captures the imagination, doesn't it? This idea that everyday objects,
Yeah.
even architecture,
Totally.
could have been harnessing this hidden energy source.
Exactly.
Interesting. And a little out there.
Yeah, some of it sounds a little like science fiction,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what makes it so intriguing. So the document claims that AET was like everywhere.
Yeah, like ubiquitous.
Yeah, used all over the world.
Before a war in the 19th century destroyed it all.
Oh, wow.
And get this, it claims that this war
What?
was so devastating that it actually reshaped the planet itself.
Wow.
Like, physically reshaped the planet.
That's a big claim.
It is.
And that's not all.
There's more.
There's more.
Always more.
Always more. Yeah, it claims that photography was invented way earlier than we think, and that there are photos out there showing this lost technology in action.
Now, that is something I'd love to see.
Right, me too.
Some real photographic evidence.
Yeah. But before we go down that rabbit hole,
Okay.
let's start with the basics.
Okay.
What did AET actually do? How did it work?
So the document describes AET as a way to gather and concentrate energy from the atmosphere.
Okay.
And it makes a very clear distinction.
Right.
This is not the electricity that we use today.
Okay, interesting.
It describes buildings that were designed with these special features to capture this energy and then channel it through their metal frames.
Wow.
And here's the kicker.
What's that?
No power lines.
So each building was like its own little power station.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's amazing. But it also makes you wonder, like, how did they even figure that out?
Right. Where did this knowledge come from?
Yeah.
The document gets into this concept of line zero
Okay.
in the periodic table,
Interesting.
which it says contained elements that were crucial for AET, elements that have since been removed,
Oh, wow.
perhaps intentionally.
Intentionally?
Yeah, it hints at a connection to alchemy.
Okay.
This idea that by manipulating the balance of elements,
Okay.
you can generate energy.
Hold on. Are we talking about, like, turning lead into gold here?
Not quite, but the document does mention red gold.
Red gold.
Red gold, which it claims was vital for AET.
Interesting.
And this red gold was supposedly made in a city called Hazar,
Okay.
which the document links to the word hazard.
Like, it was dangerous.
Yeah, implying some kind of danger
Wow.
associated with this technology.
Okay.
It even suggests that gold itself,
Like real gold.
was a key ingredient in making red gold.
Wow.
And, this could explain why we shifted from gold coins to paper money.
You think so?
Well, maybe it was a way to control access to this powerful technology.
So they're saying that getting rid of gold coins was a way to control access to AET.
It's a theory.
That's a wild theory.
It is a bold claim.
It is.
And it leads to a really big question. If AET was so beneficial,
Right.
why was it destroyed?
Yeah, why would they get rid of something so good?
The document suggests there was a power struggle, a war that led to the victors wiping out this knowledge and basically rewriting history. And get this, it claims that Stalin
Okay.
tried to bring AET back in the USSR,
Really?
building structures that could tap into this atmospheric energy. But those projects were abandoned after his death.
Okay, so we've got buildings as power plants,
Yeah.
a secret history of alchemy.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. And a war that changed everything. What else does this document have in store for us?
Well, it goes on to describe how AET was used in every aspect of life,
Okay.
from lighting and heating to transportation and healthcare.
Wow.
It paints this picture of a world very different from ours,
Yeah?
where energy was abundant and technology was in harmony with nature.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. The document describes lighting solutions.
Okay.
That sounds so simple,
Really?
like light bulbs connected directly to the building frames. Some even shaped like glass balls filled with gas.
Wow.
And get this, the document says some of these light bulbs are still around today in museums.
It is incredible to think that we might have remnants of this lost technology
Right.
right there in front of us.
Yeah, just sitting there in a museum.
The document also details how AET was used for heating.
Okay.
It talks about these devices that converted atmospheric energy into heat, some resembling ancient bonfires.
Okay.
It even describes these ornate porcelain boilers found in wealthy homes, used for central heating via air canals.
So they had like central heating back then.
It seems that way.
It's pretty advanced.
Remember those cucumbers on rooftops we talked about?
Oh, yeah. Those
Well, the document calls them cornichons.
cornichons.
Yeah, and it claims they were way more than just decoration.
Okay.
They actually housed this red gold,
Okay.
which was crucial for generating static electricity, a key part of how AET worked.
So it really was all about the cucumbers.
Maybe not all about the cucumbers,
Yeah.
but they definitely played a role.
Okay.
The document emphasizes that static electricity, which we view as a nuisance today.
Yeah. Like a little shot.
Exactly. That was actually vital for AET. It describes how these cornichons,
Okay.
along with the eaves and special acoustic lenses called treeses.
Treeses.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
It is.
All work together to focus atmospheric energy and direct the flow of static electricity.
Wow. So they were using the structure of the building
Yeah.
to control the energy.
It even connects this to naturally occurring electromagnetic waves in the Earth's atmosphere, something called Schumann resonances.
Schumann resonances.
Yeah, have you heard of those?
I have, but I don't really understand them.
They're basically these natural pulses of energy that occur in the Earth's electromagnetic field.
So they were tapping into the planet's natural energy field.
That's what it sounds like.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's a pretty radical concept.
But what about like everyday items?
Yeah.
Did AET power those too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The document lists all sorts of things that were supposedly powered by AET.
Like
Irons, samovars.
samovars.
You know those Russian tea urns?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Even doorbells.
Wow.
It claims that after AET was lost,
Yeah.
many of these devices were redesigned to burn hydrocarbons,
Oh, so they had to switch to like gas and coal.
which the document portrays as a technological step backward.
It's almost like we went from wireless power to being tethered to power lines.
It's a thought-provoking idea, isn't it?
It really is. It makes you think about what we might have lost.
It does, and this is just the beginning.
Really? There's more.
Oh yeah, the document goes even further,
Okay.
describing how AET might have powered large-scale systems,
Uh-huh.
like water supply and transportation.
Wow. Okay, we're going to have to hear about that.
Yeah, so we talked about how AET could power like homes and everyday objects.
Right.
But this document, it goes even further,
Right.
claiming that AET was used for like much larger systems,
Right.
like water supply.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, this is where the document
Yeah.
starts to sound almost unbelievable.
It describes these pumps
Uh-huh.
that use steam generated from atmospheric energy to like draw and distribute water.
Okay.
And what's really fascinating
What?
is it claims these pumps
Yeah.
had pipes with absolutely no smoke coming out.
No smoke.
None.
That's a pretty clear sign that something different was going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, today
Yeah.
we associate smoke with power generation.
Totally. Yeah.
But the document
Yeah.
suggests that's only because we switched to burning things like wood and coal.
So it's like we took a perfectly clean system
Right.
and made it pollute the environment.
Yeah. Basically traded efficiency
Yeah.
for pollution.
Wow. But what about places where water was scarce?
Uh,
Did they have AET-powered solutions for that too?
According to the document, yes.
Really?
They had these machines
Okay.
that could extract water in like really dry regions using atmospheric energy.
Wow.
It mentions them being used on different continents
Okay.
and in all sorts of sizes. So like big ones and small ones.
Exactly. And it even compares these machines to the ancient Abyssinian wells.
Abyssinian wells.
Yeah. Have you heard of those?
I have it.
They're these early wells
Like,
that use a pretty simple method to access groundwater,
wow, that's pretty impressive.
especially in remote areas.
Yeah, so they had a way to get water even in the desert.
It seems that way.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it challenges our assumptions about what was possible back then.
It does. What about food?
Okay.
Did AET play a role in agriculture?
Now, this is where the document gets even more fascinating.
Okay.
It claims that before that 19th century war we talked about, the global climate was much milder, even in northern regions. And this allowed like a much wider variety of crops to be grown. It talks about canals for irrigation,
Right.
and then it introduces this concept of the Earth's etheric field.
Hold on, etheric field.
No.
That sounds a little out there,
It does, doesn't it?
even for this deep dive.
But bear with me.
Okay.
Think of the etheric field as this invisible network that connects everything.
Okay.
Kind of like the internet,
Okay.
but for energy.
Interesting.
And the document claims that this field was somehow altered after the war.
After that big war.
Yeah, the one that reshaped the planet.
Okay.
It made it impossible to grow certain crops in their original locations.
So they're saying there was this, like, global shift in this energy field.
That's what the document suggests.
And that affected plant growth.
It gives examples like pineapples being grown in Europe, which we obviously can't do today.
Right.
It even describes these greenhouses that could control both the climate and the etheric field, allowing them to grow tropical plants in northern latitudes.
Climate-controlled greenhouses hundreds of years ago.
I know it sounds incredible, but the document goes even further.
Of course it does.
It describes this giant AET-powered greenhouse built in Siberia behind the polar circle.
Wow.
They were growing pineapples and kiwis there.
Pineapples and kiwis in Siberia.
Imagine that.
That's wild.
A tropical paradise in the Arctic.
But what happened to it?
The document says it was abandoned and left to decay.
Another lost technology.
It's a recurring theme, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's almost like a warning about what happens when we lose knowledge.
Speaking of lost technology, let's talk about those antique buildings we mentioned earlier.
Okay.
The document seems to have a lot to say about them.
Okay, so it gets right into the controversy.
It does.
By questioning whether the antique era was really that old.
Right. It suggests there might have been a deliberate effort to destroy these structures and rewrite history.
Wow.
It even calls it the anti-antique movement.
Wait, so they're saying that the antique era might not have been so ancient after all.
It's a bold claim.
It is a very bold claim.
And the document offers some interesting evidence.
Like what?
It mentions this collection of etchings by Piranesi, which it claims were originally photographs,
Oh, wow.
later altered to look like etchings.
Really?
And it even suggests these etchings might actually document the destruction of these antique structures.
Wow, so if these buildings weren't that old, how are they built?
Right. The document mentions these techniques that seem impossible to replicate today.
Yeah.
And that's where AET comes back into the picture.
Okay.
It claims these buildings were constructed using metal frames
Okay.
and a special process that solidified concrete without heat,
Without heat.
all powered by atmospheric energy.
Wow.
It points to the exceptional quality and hardness of, like, ancient bricks and masonry,
Right.
suggesting a level of craftsmanship that we can't match today.
So they were using AET not just to power buildings, but to actually build them.
It's a pretty mind-blowing concept.
It is. So if AET was so integral to construction, how did they communicate?
Right, because they didn't have our modern technology.
Yeah, the document mentions communication being like on a whole other level back then.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The document describes this communication system that used low-frequency signals transmitted through these devices that looked like antennas, but worked in a totally different way.
Really?
And get this, it claims these devices
Yeah.
could transmit not just information,
Okay.
but energy wireless.
Wireless energy. So like what Nikola Tesla was trying to do.
Similar, but the document distinguishes it from Tesla's high-frequency approach.
Okay.
It talks about altering the density of the etheric field for communication and using something called cold electricity
Cold electricity.
for wireless energy transmission.
What is cold electricity?
The document describes it as a lighter form of energy from the etheric field
Okay.
that doesn't involve heat.
Okay.
It's hard to grasp with our current understanding of physics,
Right.
but it suggests they had a way to transmit power without wires.
So they had a whole network for transmitting energy wirelessly.
That's what it sounds like.
That's mind-blowing. But what about transportation?
Okay.
Did AET power vehicles too?
The document says it powered all sorts of vehicles.
Really?
Ships, Zeppelins, trains, and even cars.
Wow.
It paints this picture of a world with autonomous vehicles, long before we even dreamed of self-driving cars.
Autonomous vehicles centuries ago.
I know, it sounds crazy.
It does sound a little crazy.
But the document describes ships propelled by etheric winds.
Etheric winds.
It's described as a force similar to magnetism
Right?
that allowed them to travel without sails or oars.
So they were like magnetic ships.
In a way, yeah.
Wow.
It mentions these swimming lighthouses
Swimming lighthouses.
that could move on their own.
Yeah.
And even claims that Zeppelins used vacuum balloons created and maintained by AET-powered compressors.
Vacuum balloons. Wouldn't those be incredibly fragile?
The document suggests that their sheer size,
Okay.
which could be enormous,
Yeah.
compensated for their fragility.
Interesting.
It also notes that these Zeppelins were mainly used in warfare,
Warfare.
which might explain why we don't have many pictures of them.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
It even describes a shift to helium and hydrogen-powered Zeppelins in the 20th century, which eventually led to their decline.
So they went from this clean, silent technology to flammable, dangerous gases.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
It does. Kind of like with the water pumps and the smoke.
Yeah, it's like a pattern.
Yeah, like we keep going backwards instead of forwards.
And the document continues this pattern by describing how AET was used in railroads.
Go away.
It highlights this unique two-rail and cable setup.
Okay.
Initially used for electrical engines, but later adapted for steam boilers powered by AET.
So they had electric trains and steam trains.
Yeah, but both powered by atmospheric energy.
Wow.
It even mentions these wireless trains
Wireless trams.
that ran without any rails or cables.
How is that even possible?
So I know, right? It sounds almost too advanced for the time period we're talking about.
It does.
But the document insists that these trams existed and that their blueprints have been lost.
Of course they have.
It then moves on to automobiles,
Automobiles.
claiming that early cars
Okay.
used AET through specially designed wheels
Okay.
and metal-paved roads
Metal road.
for transmitting energy.
So like a giant electric slot car track.
Pretty much.
That's wild.
It even mentions the existence of these metal roads in cities like Kronstadt, Russia.
So there's like physical evidence of this.
Potentially, yeah. But it goes on to describe even more advanced cars with engines that directly harnessed AET,
So no wires or anything.
eliminating the need for any external power source.
So they had truly wireless electric cars.
That's what the document claims.
Wow.
It even introduces this mysterious artifact called Sulia.
Sulia.
It's described as a rod filled with this special liquid
Okay.
that supposedly generated steam for the engine. It describes these cars as having really impressive performance.
Okay.
Quick acceleration, high speeds, all while being heavier than conventional vehicles.
That sounds almost too good to be true.
Right. But the document insists that these cars were produced in the USSR until 1953.
Wow.
Used exclusively by the elite,
So like a secret government project.
with their designs kept top secret.
Okay.
It then describes the sudden disappearance of these AET-powered cars
Wow.
and the shift to battery-powered and then internal combustion engine vehicles.
So another technological step backward.
Seems like it's
Like we keep taking one step forward and two steps back.
That's a strange pattern, isn't it?
It is, but let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
The document also mentions AET being used in healthcare. What did that look like?
This is where things get really interesting
Okay.
and maybe a little controversial.
Right.
The document claims that healthcare in the past was focused on manipulating the human spiritual body
Spiritual body.
or aura
Okay.
for healing.
So like energy healing.
Essentially, yeah.
Right.
And AET played a key role in this.
Okay.
It claims they could heal all sorts of diseases,
Uh-huh.
even ones we consider incurable today.
Really?
And it says things like narcotics and cancer were
Wow.
unheard of.
So they had no need for drugs or chemo.
That's what the document suggests.
That's amazing.
It describes these special buildings with controlled etheric fields used in conjunction with music incense and other therapies.
So they were using AET to create like healing spaces.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the document points out
Okay.
that these establishments disappeared in the late 19th century.
Around the same time as that war.
Around the same time, yeah.
And the loss of AET.
You know, it's like all connected somehow.
Yeah, it is. It also describes these devices used to combat pandemics, which sound kind of similar to like modern sanitizers,
Yeah.
but worked on AET principles.
So like an energy purifier
Right.
instead of a chemical one.
That's a very different way of thinking about it.
It is, right.
Yeah.
The document claims that these devices,
Mm.
called seni, could purify the spiritual body
Okay.
and protect against viruses,
Interesting.
which they saw as these harmful software algorithms
Okay.
affecting the spiritual body.
That's a very different way of thinking about viruses.
Yeah, it's not about germs.
Yeah.
It's about energy.
Right, so these seni could, like, cleanse your energy field.
They just take you from getting sick.
Oh, wow.
And the document goes on to explain how these seni
Right.
became just decorative items after AET was lost.
So they lost their power.
Basically, any attempts to recreate their functionality were dismissed as fraud.
It's like they took something powerful and turned it into a meaningless trinket.
Yeah, it's a strange thing to think about.
It is, but what about leisure and entertainment?
Okay,
Did AET play a role there, too?
absolutely. The document describes how music
Okay.
was understood as vibrations of the etheric field capable of inducing euphoria in listeners.
Wow.
It talks about these specially modified instruments
Really?
and buildings designed to amplify these etheric vibrations, creating a kind of immersive, multi-sensory experience.
So like a concert hall that was also a giant instrument.
Exactly.
Why?
And it mentions the really vibrant atmosphere at these musical gatherings where people freely express their emotions, contrasting it with how we experience music today.
It's interesting.
It even links the word cafe
Right.
to the Eastern word kaif,
Kaif.
meaning pleasure,
Okay.
suggesting that these establishments were designed for relaxation and enjoyment.
So AET powered their parties, too.
It seems that way.
Wow. But the document also gets into some pretty mystical territory.
It does.
It mentions things like hypnosis, telepathy,
Yeah.
and even communication with the dead.
This is where things get really intriguing.
Okay.
The document claims that AET could awaken the sixth sense
The sixth sense,
and allow interaction with the noosphere.
the new sphere.
It's described as this realm of consciousness
Okay.
that exists beyond our normal perception.
So like a spiritual dimension?
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
It even describes special buildings
Uh-huh.
designed for contacting the dead,
Really?
possibly using mirrors and specific lighting techniques
Okay.
powered by AET.
So AET could connect people to the spirit world.
It's a bold claim.
This is a very bold claim.
And the document suggests that this connection was lost
Right.
when AET was destroyed.
So we lost our connection to the other side.
Maybe it's like we've lost touch with a whole dimension of existence.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, but the document doesn't end on this mystical note.
Okay.
It circles back to warfare
Warfare.
and makes some really startling claims
All right.
about the role of AET in past conflicts.
Okay, this is where things get really dark.
The document challenges the common narrative about historical warfare,
Yeah.
questioning how seemingly conventional weapons
Right?
could have caused such widespread devastation.
Like the damage doesn't match the weapons.
Exactly.
Okay.
It even suggests that many images of past wars
Yeah.
have been falsified
Really?
to conceal the true nature of the technology involved.
Wait, so they're saying that history books are wrong about how wars were fought.
That's what the document is proposing.
Wow.
It claims that AET-powered weapons that far exceeded modern capabilities,
Okay.
describing toroids instead of bullets,
Right.
and knight armor functioning as grounding devices against these weapons.
So they were fighting with energy weapons centuries ago.
That's the claim the document describes these pistols,
Uh-huh.
connected to AE sources through these special conductors called axle bands,
Axle bands.
allowing for powerful discharges. It even describes soldiers creating these chain networks with their axle bands
Wow.
to amplify their weapons power.
That sounds like something straight out of a video game.
I know, right?
It does.
But the document insists that this technology was real
Okay.
and that it was used in artillery as well,
Really?
connecting cannons to AET sources
Oh.
through thick wires,
Okay.
causing just massive destruction.
So these weren't your typical cannons.
No, they were powered by something much greater.
Wow.
It even mentions landscapes
Yeah.
that were transformed into barren wastelands by these weapons,
Wow.
far exceeding the damage you'd expect from traditional cannons.
So AET was used for both creation and destruction.
It seems so.
That's a powerful and perhaps terrifying thought.
It is. It makes you wonder about the true potential of this technology.
It does, but how exactly did they harness this energy?
Right. We still need answers.
Yeah, the document keeps mentioning line 0, and red gold.
Yeah.
But it's still a bit unclear how it all worked. You're right. It's time we delve a little deeper into the core principles of AET.
Yeah.
And try to understand the science behind it.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So we've heard about all the amazing things AET could supposedly do.
Yeah, like it's almost hard to believe.
It is, right?
Uh-huh.
But the big question remains.
How did it actually work?
Exactly. The document keeps mentioning line 0.
Right. And red gold.
But it's still pretty vague on the specifics.
Yeah, it's like we're missing a piece of the puzzle.
It is like a missing piece, and it's a big one.
Yeah, so let's revisit that idea of line 0 in the periodic table.
Okay.
The document claims it contained these elements that were essential for harnessing atmospheric energy.
Like a key ingredient.
Yeah, and these elements are like completely unknown to modern science.
It's almost like they're saying
Yeah.
there's a whole hidden section of the periodic table
A hidden section.
that we've just forgotten about.
So what were these elements, and how did they supposedly work? Unfortunately, the document doesn't give us specifics about the elements themselves,
Oh, okay.
but it does offer some clues about their function.
Like what?
It describes them as being in a state of balance under normal circumstances.
Okay.
But when this balance is disrupted,
Yeah.
it creates a flow of energy.
Interesting. So it's all about balance.
And the document compares this to static electricity,
Static electricity.
which we tend to dismiss as a minor annoyance today.
Yeah, like when you get a little shock.
Exactly, but
Yeah.
they're suggesting that static electricity
Yeah.
wasn't just a nuisance, it was actually the key
The key to what?
to unlocking this hidden energy source.
Wow, that's a pretty radical idea.
It is. It really changes how we think about something so basic.
It does. And remember that red gold we talked about?
Yeah, the mysterious red gold.
The document suggests that it played a crucial role in disrupting the balance of these line 0 elements.
Creating a kind of controlled chaos.
Controlled chaos. Okay, I like that.
It suggests that red gold was able to generate static electricity on a large scale.
Okay, so the red gold was like the catalyst.
Yeah, I could say that.
And those cornichons, those cucumber-shaped things on the rooftops,
Yes, the infamous cucumber.
were they somehow involved in this process too?
Absolutely. The document claims that those cornichons,
Okay.
along with the eaves and treeses,
The acoustic lenses.
right, all those architectural elements,
Yeah.
they were all designed to manipulate the flow of static electricity.
So it wasn't just about the materials they used.
Right.
It was about the shape and structure of the buildings themselves.
The whole building was part of the system.
So they were designed to resonate with the Earth's natural energy fields.
That's the idea. And the document even connects this
Yeah.
to those Schumann resonances we talked about earlier.
Okay, the electromagnetic waves.
Exactly. It suggests that these buildings were tuned to specific frequencies,
Wow.
which amplified the effects of AET.
So the buildings were like giant antennas?
In a way, yeah, it's a fascinating concept.
It is this idea that architecture could be so much more than just shelter.
Right. It could be a conduit for energy.
Yeah, and even consciousness.
It really blurs the lines between the physical and the metaphysical.
It does. But if this technology was so advanced, why was it lost?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah. Was it just a result of that war, or were there other factors at play?
The document points to a combination of factors.
Okay.
It mentions the war that reshaped the world,
Yeah, that big one.
claiming that the victors deliberately suppressed this knowledge.
To maintain their power.
Exactly. It suggests that powerful forces removed those line 0 elements from the periodic table and even replaced gold coins with paper money.
Really? To control access to AET.
It's a bold claim, but it makes you think.
It does. It's almost like a conspiracy theory.
It has that element to it, doesn't it?
It does, but one with a lot of intriguing evidence to support it.
And that's what makes it so compelling.
It makes you wonder what else might be hidden from us.
Right. What other possibilities we might be missing out on?
So what do you think? Could AET really have existed?
Honestly, it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah,
The document we've explored today presents a very compelling case,
it does.
but it also leaves us with more questions than answers.
It always seems to be that way.
It's the nature of exploration, isn't it?
It is.
We delve into the unknown and we often come out with even more mysteries.
So what are we supposed to do with all this information?
Well, I think it's up to each of us
Yeah.
to examine the evidence, weigh the possibilities, and draw our own conclusions.
So we have to think for ourselves.
Exactly. We can't just blindly accept or reject what we've been told.
That's a good point. This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey.
It has, hasn't it?
Through a lost world of technology, a world of self-sufficient buildings, etheric healing.
And weapons of unimaginable power.
It's a lot to process.
It is. But whether AET was a historical reality or a product of someone's imagination,
Yeah.
it serves as a powerful reminder
Of what?
that there's always more to discover.
Absolutely.
That the boundaries of knowledge
Yeah.
are constantly being redefined.
And that maybe we shouldn't underestimate the ingenuity of our ancestors.
Exactly. They may have possessed wisdom and abilities that we've long forgotten.
It's a humbling thought, so to everyone listening, we encourage you to keep exploring,
Keep questioning.
keep an open mind.
The answers to some of our greatest challenges
Yeah.
may lie hidden in the past, just waiting to be brought to light.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into atmospheric energy technology.